Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Courtney Ryan, and today we're doing something very different than I've ever done on my channel before, but this story was just too good not to share with all of you, and I think there are some lessons and wisdom to be learned here today, so let's get started. So recently I went to Miami and I sat next to a sugar daddy and his sugar baby at dinner, and I'm gonna tell you what happened because it was so cringe. The conversation was just one of the most cringy things I've ever had to listen to. And it was one of those situations where it's cringy and you want to stop listening, but you just can't. There's just something in your brain that's like, no, keep listening, enjoy your dinner, enjoy the entertainment next to you. And so that's what I did, and it was just too good not to share with all of you. So I'm from the Midwest. I live in Cleveland, which is very different than Miami. I honestly felt like I was on another planet. So obviously dating can be different depending on where you are in the world. I would say that dating in the Midwest is very different than it is in a Miami or in LA. I think that it's a bit more competitive, a little bit more superficial. Of course, not for everyone, but just generally speaking, the Midwest for dating is much different than Miami. And it was very evident from the 4 days that I was there and from this conversation that I overheard. So we're sitting there, dinner's going great, we're at a very nice place. It's, you know, a little bit upscale, it's very nice. This couple walks in, they sit right next to us, and on one side is like a row of booths, and I'm on the booth side, and all the women are sitting on the booth side, and then all the men are sitting in the chairs across. So they sit down, and the first thing he says so loudly that, like, I think half the restaurant heard him was, "I'm so glad all the men are sitting on this side so they can see how sexy you are." The girl looked mortified, number one. I probably looked mortified. I think half the restaurant was like, okay. So at this point, I knew we were going to be off to a great start, and I was going to have a great entertainment piece sitting next to me to enjoy my dinner. So dinner's continuing. I'm trying not to eavesdrop the entire time. I'm also sitting and talking to Teddy across from me, but he noticed it too, and then after we left, we had a really lovely conversation about it. But then they're talking about the night that they're going to spend together or whatever. He says something about how he wants her to come back to his place. I almost can't believe this is a true story sitting here and telling you this because I've never heard desperation like this in my life. So she proceeds to tell him that instead of staying the night with him tonight, she would rather drive an hour and a half back to wherever she lives in Florida instead of staying the night with him. And he did not like to hear this. He was like, oh, I bet you'll change your mind, trying to bribe her with dinner and whatever. She's like, I'm not hungry. She ate anyway, so I don't know why she said that, probably just because she didn't want to stay the night with him. But it was just so obvious that she was not into him at all, and he was like obsessed with her. Even so much so at one point he grabs her hand at the table and says, "I love you, baby," and she doesn't say it back. She just sits there in silence. Like, how much more obvious can it be? The entire dinner, and I'm not even being dramatic, he sat and bragged about how much money he makes, about all the people that work for him and how they make millions of dollars, and how he's gonna buy her all this stuff, and about how expensive dinner is, and he's just going on and on and on the entire time. And at this point, like, I don't like this guy sitting next to him. I don't even know him. I've never even interacted with him, and I can tell he's just awful. She barely spoke. She was on her phone. She was just like not into him at all, and it was so incredibly obvious. So why am I telling you this story? You're like, Courtney, this is juicy, it's entertaining, but why are you telling me this? Because this man just probably spent $500 on a dinner for a girl who was clearly disgusted by him and wanted absolutely nothing to do with him, and I don't want this to happen to any of you. And I think in places like this, it's incredibly common. Again, would I see this in the Midwest? Maybe, but probably not. In Miami, like, this was just one dinner. I was there for 3 days and I saw this. So I'm sure that it's very common down there. And I think that this is happening a lot. There's obviously a market for it. There's a ton of sugar daddy, sugar baby, millionaire match type of websites where people are doing this. But there's a couple different things I want to talk about here. Number one was the fact that he felt like he had to brag and like rub his money in her face the entire night in order for her to like him. Is just sad, and I would hate for any of you to act that way or to feel like you needed to act that way with someone, because the person that you should want to be with would not require you to act like that. And honestly, it just made him look even worse. And I was thinking to myself, I know that so many men go on first dates and feel like they can't be themselves, feel like they can't be authentic, feel like they have to pretend to be someone they're not in order to impress someone that clearly doesn't even like who they are. And that was what I saw firsthand, and I don't want any of you to feel like you need to do that. And if you go out with someone and you feel like you have to do that, they're just not a good match for you, and that's okay. Not every single person you go out with is going to be a good match for you, but I promise you, you will not have to act like that in order to get someone to like you that you should want to like you. And it didn't even work anyway. She was clearly and utterly disgusted by this guy and was so obviously just using him for his money and a free meal. And probably all the gifts he was going to buy her later because she didn't want to spend the night with him. And it was sad to me because it was so obvious that he was like head over heels in love with this girl. I mean, he told her that at the table. The whole restaurant probably heard him. And for her to not say anything back, it was just probably a punch to the gut. And I'm not, making an excuse for him because he was kind of horrible. But at the same time, it's like, why are you spending so much money? Why are you trying to impress people who don't even like you? It's so sad. And I know there are men that do this and don't necessarily have an emotional attachment to the girl and literally just want to, show off their money and buy things. There are people that are like that and just, want to blow their money to impress people. And that's a whole different story. That's an ego thing and an internal problem that I think people need to work out. But that's besides the point. That's not what we're talking about here because clearly, he did have an emotional connection to her and it was so obvious that she just wasn't interested. And you have to wonder when you see that and it's so obvious if they recognize that or if they're so blinded by love that they totally ignore it. And it's kind of like when you're in the beginning of a relationship and you ignore all these red flags that are so obvious, so blatantly waving in your face, but you want things to work out so badly that you ignore all of them and they end up being the reasons why things don't work out in the end. It also made me think about the type of guys and the type of girls that act this way. Specifically here, the type of guys who feel the need to brag or prove to people that they are something, that they have a ton of money, that they're rich, that they're alpha. It's like, if you are those things, you don't have to scream it to an entire restaurant. You don't have to prove it to the person that you're dating in order for them to like you. These things just speak for themselves, and I think it's very embarrassing and cringy to feel the need to shout it from the rooftops to everyone. Because again, if you are those things, they will simply speak for themselves. If you have money, you don't need to sit there and tell your date how rich you are and how all these people make millions of dollars that work for you, or how you're gonna buy her this, this, and this. Like, if you have to do that, really think about the person that you're out with. Think about that. It's horrible. And you think about the girls that are doing that too, who, are maybe manipulating people to get what they want for their money or a free meal or free bags or luxury, whatever. And it's just really sad. And I would hate for any of you to be in a situation like that or to be paying a girl to be fake into you. There are men out there who are paying women to just text them. I saw a TikTok where a guy was paying $3,000 to a girl just to text her. Why are you doing that? Get yourself together. Be the best that you can be, level up your life, increase your finances, become more attractive, put in the work, do what you have to do in order to be what you want to attract instead of having to pay people to be fake into you or fake like you or to text you or to give you attention. I know some of you guys are lonely, but it's just so sad. Stop wasting your money on people who don't give a crap about you, who are just using you for your money or what you can give them. So to wrap things up here, what I really want you guys to get from this situation is A, stop spending your money and wasting all of your time and effort and energy on people who clearly are not into you. Please see the signs. Please see things for what they are and not what you want them to be, and you'll save yourself a ton of money and heartache. Number 2, you don't need to brag about the fact that you make a lot of money if you make a lot of money. You don't need to call yourself alpha if you're alpha. You don't need to boast and brag about things that should simply just speak for themselves. You gotta stop doing that. It's cringy, it's embarrassing. Just don't do it. You heard it here first. And number 3, if you're dating in Miami, good luck to you because it's a different planet down there. And I'm very thankful that I live in the Midwest. So again, I know this is very different than anything I've ever done on my channel, but this was just the strangest conversation scenario. I couldn't believe these people sat right next to me. The whole time I was listening, I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta tell my followers about this. There's so much to learn here. There's so much wisdom unpacked in this cringy conversation. So if you liked this video or found it helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to be in the loop for when I release new content. If any of you guys have been in a similar situation, please share down in the comments below. If you know someone who's been in a situation like that, please share your wisdom and experience with the guys down below so they don't make the same mistakes and end up like that very cringy date that I witnessed in Miami. If you haven't already, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Courtney Christine Ryan. I love connecting with all of you guys on there as well. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.